Hi there. I came on a few minutes early to get organized here. I think some people are on. Do you want to say hello? It looks like I can see your chat as well. Maybe let me know if you can hear me all right. Thanks for coming. Or maybe 20 people has saved the date. I'm not sure. I just came on a little early to make sure my slides are going to work, and they look good. Maybe I'll come back in a few minutes. Okay. Hi, Janet from Eastern Ontario. Welcome, Eastern Ontario. Okay, so that's like Toronto or more Eastern than that. We're having a lot of Canadians down here in Arizona right now. I've treated 2 Canadians in my clinic. It's been really nice. Hi. Well, just to warm it up while we get set here between Coburg and Kingston. Okay, I'm slowly learning my Canadian cities. My mom is actually from Montreal, and my aunt is in Pickering. Yeah, I'm sure it's cold there, and we're just in this Arizona sweet spot where it's like, it's like 75, 80 in the daytime, but still like nice and cool at night, so it's perfect. All right, so we will get going in a minute here with this topic. It's kind of about, why now is a great time to study mold, and I'm going to cover 8 mold myths that I feel like are being, misunderstood or oversimplified in the mold community. It's a really complex topic, and there's not even like, how can I say? I was going to say there's not one right way to treat things. Every client is unique. Every situation is unique. There's some principles that are important for everyone. Like, you're not going to heal in a moldy environment. But there's also like a lot of freedom with how you can heal. And I think that's important to understand because some people can't tolerate supplements very well. Some people are on a really tight budget. So there are ways to accommodate and be flexible and creative and definitely to get better. So I kind of go down a rabbit hole on some of these slides because I just like researching about mold, and you're welcome to say in the chat if you've got a question or a comment. And then I'll share a little bit about our toxic mold trained program, which starts in about 3 weeks. So we haven't launched it in almost a year, but it's coming back. It's one of very few mold practitioner training programs, but anyone's welcome to take it. So you can just take it for your own knowledge, or you can take it and be certified by us. And we have a directory. So it's just a great way if you're ready to go deeper or support more people. It's a great way to get educated on that. Okay. So I know me and Janet are here, so I'm going to keep going because it's 3:00 now. Let me bring up my slides. Like that. Okay. I think that's showing for me. Is that showing for you, Janet, the first slide? Janet's like going to be my little helper. Okay. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Bridget Danner. You probably have. But I've been in the health space a long time. I started in school in the year 2000. in Chinese medicine school, and I practiced Chinese medicine a long time. But then, really, out of my own illness, which turned out to be mold illness, I wasn't feeling well, and I started studying, I guess, what you could call functional medicine or root cause medicine, and taking different weekend seminars and just getting really interested in it. Um, and it still took a while till I found out I had mold. There's more awareness now, but there wasn't, it was still kind of a beginning awareness when I found out. So I've studied a lot of different modalities and learned from a lot of really great people. I learned how to research from one of my teachers and really like assimilate everything I've learned from functional medicine and Chinese medicine and holistic medicine, nutrition. I'm an FDN, so I've learned different things about testing. I'm pretty good with testing. So, really helped me become a better practitioner through all of this. Um, and I think being a mold practitioner is one of the toughest things you can do, besides maybe like treating cancer, which is very tough and complicated. But just there's so much nuance to the subject of mold. Let's see. So, this is obviously an educational video, and I do encourage you to work with a practitioner one on one for your own care. And this is me again. So, yeah, this is a bit about my history. I started my career in Portland, Oregon, where it's very moist, and that's where I was exposed to mold, but it can also happen in a dry climate. Um, we'll talk more about that. And yeah, I wrote a book about mold that is available on Amazon in 3 different forms, including an audiobook if you want to check that out. And this is Coach Mickey, who also wrote half the content for this course. She is not as public on, social media and stuff, but she's an amazing, amazing practitioner. She has got a great education. She's got a really big heart. She just, she's a forever student, and she created some of the lessons on here, especially about binders and the home. So she's got some really great content on here. So my mold story began when I moved into this house. There may have been some other exposures in my past, but definitely this house I lived in Oregon was an old home with a lot of additions to it and a lot of like home projects done on it. And, we were new homeowners and didn't know much. Um, and, all I knew, there's nothing really visible in our home. There wasn't any big red flag. I just was sick for many years. And I think the fact that I was learning about nutrition and taking good care of myself kind of kept me afloat. And then when I moved into working from home to work online, I got sicker because I was in the home more. And it still took a few more months to have someone suggest, hey, have you thought about looking at mold in your home? And that's, when the whole thing opened up. And, it kind of blows your life up to find out you have mold. It's not convenient. It's what no one wants. But it's better to know so you can take action. This is me in the middle looking very puffy. My eyelid was twitching a lot, which I think I was documenting there. So today we'll talk about the 8 mold myths I mentioned earlier, go into some things about treatment of the body, treatment of the home, and a little bit about our course. So there are many, many types of mold, and roughly a dozen, a little bit more maybe, of those are toxic to mammals. So that includes our pets as well, or in livestock. Um, but even other molds present in the home or yeast that can grow with moisture, certainly the off-gassing of chemicals in the home, can all mix together, and then it just creates poor indoor air quality on the whole. So it's not necessarily just those most toxic molds involved. But those most toxic molds, to me, are my focus because of the way they affect the body, which we'll learn more about. So, mold can develop, and then we're especially talking about indoor mold here. We're going to kind of focus on the home, but it certainly can be in your place of work, schools, that kind of a thing. There's just so many ways that water can enter the home, um, from leaks behind the walls. That's why most mold is not visible because it's behind the walls. If humidity is too high and belongings are getting moldy, just so many ways. So I would say the first myth is that, mold is this uncommon thing. It really is not. And if you think about the lifetime of a building, will it have, a pipe burst? Will it have, a tube from the washing machine fail? Will there be a storm and there's, damage? Will there be a problem with the roof? Yes, like it's going to happen, right? So it needs to be handled correctly, which doesn't always happen. Um, Basements and crawl spaces are notoriously moldy. So, somewhat, yes, you'll have more problems in areas that are more wet, which is kind of why I moved to Arizona. But if you think about even here in Arizona, if there's a leak inside the wall and that's trapped in like a little moist home, that's very much mold can grow. It does, yes, our air is drier, but if that area is kind of protected and there's chronic water, we can still have a mold problem. So this is kind of what I mentioned. It's, very likely that every home will have water damage. And this was like a survey of office buildings. And, do they currently have a leak? Have they had past issues? And it's very common. Here's a reason why it's a good time to become a mold expert is really these issues are going to just increase with everything going on with climate change, that we're seeing in the news. Um, so this is from a government website, predicting the risk and the costs coming up in the future for, building owners. But not every water damage needs to end in illness. It just needs to be remediated correctly, which is also a really important thing to understand. So, second myth is a little bit of a joke, but just assuming we are a healthy population, when in fact we're actually a decreasing, or I should say increasingly unhealthy population. This is a little quote about chronic disease and how it's also predicted to grow. And here's some of the top chronic diseases, and you can kind of look them up in your state or your country as well. And yes, some of them are from, eating processed foods and sugars and smoking, but some of them, and actually pretty much all of them, can have mold as a cause, even things like heart disease, kidney disease, because of the inflammation and toxicity it creates in the body. So I pulled this kind of from my book on mold. There's a lot of links between mold and these common diseases that are very costly, right, for our healthcare system. So here are some of the ways that the mold affects the body in particular. Here's about mold affecting the barriers and the tight junctions and things like the gut. It can also, here it says, activate the immune system. Here's a little more information on state by state. This is actually, I wanted to share a side story that I'm doing some work here with Clean the Air or Change the Air organization to get some legislation in Arizona. And we talked to a representative, what was it, late last week. And he was saying, well, if you could give me some data about, this issue in Arizona, that would be helpful. I need to dig a little deeper. But, here in Arizona, we're having 500,000 people with asthma. And again, that air quality is just really important. And also, as you might know, if you're watching this webinar, mold can colonize in the sinuses and also change the microbiome of the sinuses, which leads to um, can potentially lead to chronic illness. One sec. This is a little study on if you have a pre-existing condition and then you're exposed to mold, which we see a lot. This is mentioning autoimmunity, HIV, again, things like asthma. So if you're already in some kind of health weakness and then you're exposed, it can really exacerbate things. This is a little bit of a little study on, I think it's from pigs, and this is a more positive study showing that curcumin is one element that can restore the dysregulation that mycotoxins cause. And here's another myth that I think is really important to talk about. There's that you only if you have the genetic predisposition to not tag mold with your immune system, um, are you going to get sick? Anybody can get sick from mold. It's definitely not only those 25%. That's just one way the body is responding to mold, but it's not the only way our bodies respond to mold. And various body systems can be overwhelmed by mold. So, if people are going around saying, oh, 25% of us are susceptible to mold, no, 100% of us are susceptible to mold. And just our genetics are one factor, but there's other factors as well. Your age, what other conditions you've had, how long you've been in mold, will catch up to you. Children are another group that are susceptible. The way that they're breathing and they have a less complex ability to handle toxins. On the other side of things, also elderly people can be worse off, and it just depends where you're at. Like if I mentioned earlier, when I started to work from home and my home was compromised, I got sicker. So lots of factors. This is a good one I found on women being a group that's more susceptible as well because of the way our immune systems are set up. Um, as mothers, we have a kind of a more active immune system, and that can be a negative when it comes to being chronically exposed. So this is that dreaded gene I mentioned earlier, the HLA-DR gene, and it can be a factor, but it's not the only factor. Here's just a few other genes that can play a role that you may have heard of, genes that help us detoxify and make glutathione, that type of thing. Myth number 4 is that you just have to kill the mold. Well, mold can be removed and it can somewhat be killed because it's a living thing, but it's releasing all these toxins, and those are actually not able to be killed because they're just chemical compounds. So they can be transformed, but really it's best that they are also removed, because when we think about different treatments to spray the air and fog and all this stuff, we don't know what exactly we're transforming those mycotoxins to. We're making a change, but we don't 100% know what they're changing into. Are they being completely deactivated in a way that makes them safe, or are they still going to be irritating to our airways? Which is why I'm a much bigger fan of getting rid of and removing as much as possible. And I've seen it time and time again that People want to, keep this, keep that. Oh, I sprayed this, it's going to be fine. And then they're not fine. So, this is just a very important nuance, that it's not just about kill, kill, kill. It's really about removal to eliminate that exposure. So here's a nice visual from Richie Shoemaker's website on the spores versus the mycotoxins. And really, none of these are visible unless you have a large colony of spores that is in a place that you can see them. So the size of the actual mycotoxins and fragments are really small, which makes them really hard to remove and makes them very easily get in deep places like your sofa, which is expensive to replace. I get it. But those kinds of things are very, very difficult, pretty much impossible to clean properly. So I kind of hit this point already. On the bottom here is a pretty disturbing quote that there can be 1 billion spores per cubic meter of air in a moldy building, which is really gross to think about. Myth number 5 is that mycotoxin testing and treatment is like a formula: A plus B equals C. So what I mean by this is people are like, well, my urine test showed I have this mycotoxin, so I'm going to match it with this binder that removes that type of mycotoxin. It's not really that simple. What you see in a snapshot in your urine test or in a home test, that could be a totally different a week from now. So this when the spores are living and changing and growing, the quantities are going to change in your body. How you're detoxifying is going to change. So you have to just kind of look at it a little more holistically, that you've been exposed to a number of toxins. We're going to show how many there are in a second, and what's the best way to eliminate exposure and detox the body. So it's not like, oh, I have a sinus infection, so I take an antibiotic. It's not like that, right? It's broader. So, I have a few slides here on how big and broad these numbers are, and that the type of mycotoxins produced will be different. Say if there's dryness in the air or there's moisture in the air, um, when a colony is dry, it can actually like produce more mycotoxins and be kind of shedding more. So it's always a changing element. And again, like I said, lots of things could be happening together with chemicals in the home and yeast in the home and this type of thing. So, more than 500 mycotoxins have been identified, but they have not all been identified. And there's maybe many more that we just don't even understand yet. We don't even know how to detect, or could be a second layer of waste product that mold or mycotoxins play or produce, excuse me. So when you get a urine test, these are some of the mycotoxins you're going to see there on the test. And I've got a few examples here. So Vibrant Labs measures these mycotoxins, and it may be changing over time, but this was when I prepared this slide. So they're just catching different kind of categories and groups. They're not touching every single type of mycotoxin. This is the real-time report, which is a pretty small report, but again, they're kind of hitting some of the big groups. And this is a graphic from Mosaic Labs that I liked, that talked about how some of the different mycotoxins affect different systems. So, excuse me. This is why it makes so many different symptoms potentially, where you're forgetful, you're having IBS, you're having skin rashes, this kind of thing. And you can see the upper right is um, mycotoxins that are carcinogenic, which is really important. Um, Sometimes I see people get sort of mentally stuck with not wanting to move and, oh, this is too much work. It's too expensive. I have nowhere to go. And if you think about how serious these toxins are and that they're, capable of damaging your cardiac system and creating cancers, like affecting your kidneys, like you need to get away from them. It's really important. Here's a visual of some of the chemical structures of different mycotoxins. And just to kind of sum it up, it's, not quite as simple as what you saw on your test. And sometimes people question, well, how come my home showed this kind of mold and then my body showed this kind of mold? Well, just don't worry about it. You're exposed to mold and we're going to clean it all up. And that's the most important thing. So here's kind of some of the key things when you are detoxing is make sure those foundations of health are in place. It can be tempting to try some fancy binder you saw online or go to some special clinic you heard about, but just make sure you're getting a good night's sleep, you're hydrating, you're eating whole foods, you're managing your own mental health, and the way you're approaching this difficult situation. You got to kind of stay grounded the best you can and just take care of yourself. You need to absolutely deal with your environment properly, which also often means moving out of it and starting fresh with your belongings. And you need to detox. There's a lot we could talk about there. And then kind of last level is restoring those body systems that have been damaged and just supporting them to get back online. Myth number 6 is only binders get rid of toxins. I've heard this one a lot because, again, a lot of people can't tolerate binders. They get a headache, they get constipated, and they think, oh, I'm never going to get better because I can't take binders. First of all, there's lots of kinds of binders. We're going to get into that. And they're not all pills. And also know that there's a lot of other ways your body is neutralizing mycotoxins. They're not only caught with binders, not at all. You can never take a binder and recover from mold. I almost feel scandalous like saying that, but it's true. These are just some of the ways here below that our body handles mycotoxins. So our body does know how to handle mycotoxins. It just becomes overwhelmed because you are staying in the same environment and your body's systems and its nutrient storage are getting less and less and less. So that's how the body is failing you when it comes to mycotoxins. If you got a little tiny bit of exposure and you're eating well and you're exercising, you're not going to even notice you got exposed. It's just that chronic exposure. And there's lots and lots of ways to deal with it. So don't believe that you have to take a certain person's binder or you have to take a bunch of binders or whatever it is. You don't have to do anything any one way. You just have to find the way that works best for you. So here's a great graphic on the liver and the phases of detox and some of the nutrients needed. So even getting more B vitamins, whether it's through a supplement or organ meat or whatever, can be a way to support your liver. Getting glutathione is listed in here. One way is through coffee enemas, getting flavonoids, which is, fruits and vegetables, basically. And here in phase 2, where the toxin is conjugated, these are the different processes. And again, the nutrients needed, B vitamins, vitamin C, methionine, magnesium. A lot of people aren't taking enough magnesium or any magnesium. That's so simple to do. So even if you're on a budget, there's like really a lot of simple things you can do to support your liver, which does know how to break down mycotoxins It just needs you to stop exposing yourself to them and support the body. So there's probably a big rabbit hole we could go down on how different mycotoxins are detoxified. But as we saw in this liver graphic, there's different phases and ways that the toxins are broken down. And different toxins are broken down different ways. So we have to kind of support all of it, all of these detox pathways. And again, not just binders, right? You need to get your B vitamins, your protein. You need to make that liver be popping. You need to support your liver because it's going through various pathways to break down different types of mycotoxins, which we said there's hundreds of them. So we've got to have that like cast a wide net of how we're dealing with mycotoxins. And a healthy gut will also transform mycotoxins. Here's a study on how it's being done in our intestinal mucosa. This is a study on pigs, which are our closest relatives, so to speak, and a lot of things in the way that our bodies work. Here's some information on beneficial yeast and antibiotic, which can break down and bind to. You even see the word bind aflatoxins, bind mycotoxins. Here at the bottom is a type of fiber, basically a fiber that binds to citrinin, which is a category of mycotoxins. So here are three ways that you can bind mycotoxins that aren't officially binders. Foods also very helpful. This is a pathway, or excuse me, this is some graphics from some work that Dr. Neil Nathan did showing the mycotoxins on the left, which detox pathway it's being processed through in the liver, and then elements of nutrition that support that pathway. So, for example, ochratoxin being detoxified through glucuronidation, things that support that are quercetin, curcumin, cruciferous vegetables, grapes, berries, pomegranate, walnuts. So, do we ever hear about walnuts being good for mold detox? No. But here it is, right? They contain nutrients that support this pathway. So eating real whole foods is a fantastic way to detoxify. And I know you may have food sensitivities right now if you're going through mold, and that's okay. Eat what you can, and as your system gets healthier, you can keep, trying to push the envelope and eat a little more and more variety of foods. Coach Mickey often puts her sensitive clients on big doses of steamed greens every day because they've been shown to be very detoxifying. So again, something very simple, very good for you, just from the grocery store or from your backyard if you're so inclined. I grew a little bit of greens this year, which was fun. So here are some of more like store-bought binders and things that bind to different mycotoxins. So binders are meant to trap toxins in the colon so that bile is pooped out essentially instead of recycled back, because the body tries to recycle back bile, and sometimes the toxins are getting recycled back along with it. So basically we're just trying to bind bile and toxins so they are eliminated instead of recycled. So the bond is weaker than you may think, which is why some people occasionally feel kind of sick or bad on binders. The bond is not like a lock and key. So I like to give the example that sometimes when I was recovering, I'd take my binder at bedtime. And then if I couldn't sleep, I would go take some melatonin or whatever. and it would still work. It doesn't just blindly like bind everything in the neighborhood. But it can bind some nutrients. You do want to take it away from things. um, but this is just, some of the nuance on binders. Some people can't tolerate them too soon in the process. Some people get constipated, which you need to address. Some people have unhealthy bile, which needs to be addressed. And then you may see on a retest of your mycotoxins that they haven't gone down, but that doesn't necessarily mean the binders or your detox aren't working. This is just kind of a quick slide saying, also we need to think about clearing the nasal area, which we talk about in the course quite a bit. This is a little trick that Coach Mickey introduced me to that I've still been doing, which is this time steam technique. Okay, getting into the home, I think we have a myth coming up. This is my actual home, and we redid the siding. We put quite a bit of money into the home to fix everything up. So this is probably the biggest weak point for practitioners is they're telling their clients, well, mold's really bad for you, but they don't know how to give advice about the home and all the many decisions to make. And so they're just sort of like off the cuff, like scaring you without any real solutions. So if you're a health practitioner, people are going to come to you with questions about the home. And you don't have to necessarily become like the tip-top expert at the home, but you need to be decent. You need to know what you're talking about and refer them out or, tell them they're going to say, well, how do I find a good remediator? How do I know my inspector's good? What do I do with my bed? They're going to have questions. And if you don't have any answers, I get it. Maybe you can just say, hey, that's not my thing, refer it out. But we're holistic practitioners, and we're often the first person they're coming to, the only person who's really advocating for their health. So the more you know about the home issue, the better. You can even become a specialist just in that. We've had one student for sure who wanted to just go into the home aspect. And there's a lot of clients out there wanting coaches to help them with their home questions. You could easily make a business just on the home. It's probably more needed than the health aspect at this point. Just because there's not enough people on the home side. So I'll often hear from people who saw their health practitioner, well, my practitioner told me to run an ERMI, and now I have these results and I don't know what to think of them, and the practitioner doesn't know what to think of them. Yeah, an ERMI test is not really made for the way we use it in a residential setting. So it's hard to read if you're not really good at reading it. And it's not enough. It's not a holistic way to test the home because it doesn't tell you where the moisture is coming from. So this is what, I hear practitioners just say, "Oh, just run an ERMI." It's not enough. It's not strong advice. You need really, if you're an owner, you need an inspection. If you're a renter, it's a little bit different situation. So you also have to think about some aspects of like, what is this place the person is in? How much money should they invest or not invest in understanding this place? I see big time mistakes with clients keeping items, recontaminating a new space. So common. So, this is really important to talk to your clients about and give them the straight talk because they're going to bring their stuff with them and they're going to regret it 3 months from now. So, whether or not they always listen, whether they listen is up to them, but you want to give them good, sound advice on their belongings. I just have a few slides we'll go over quickly here about, these are just some takeaways from our course and, where to look for mold. Often clients will say like, well, especially when they want to get a second place. Well, how do I know? What can I look for? Actually, a lot you can do on your own once you become more aware. You know where to look, basically where water is interacting with the home or areas that are prone to humidity type of thing. So here's some images that you can look for on a visual inspection. Things like bubbling paint is a sign that there was moisture. There's some really, affordable ways to test your humidity, for example, and you want to keep it under 50% to prevent mold growth. Here's some tips on finding an inspector. So, some different organizations that train inspectors, and you can look on their websites. I mean, these are really simple things, but when your client is sick with mold and just can't think clearly, they don't think to, okay, how can I find a good inspector? They don't know. Well, find one who's trained. I don't think we need to go into this, but it's just some stuff we cover on the courses. We get in detail about the different types of testing and the pros and cons. And moving on to our last myth, just use bleach. Remediation is something that needs to be done very carefully, whether you're the owner or you're a renter. If you're a renter, I usually just want you out. So here's a few more things, how to hire the right remediator, what to ask. This is a little bit cut off. But yeah, this is, why this is a snapshot of why we created this program, because there's just a lot of little details and nuance with mold that I think it's fantastic. There's more awareness, but it's sometimes oversimplified and not handled quite right, which can keep you sick. This is just quickly some slides on clients of mine who came with kind of faulty information from their last practitioner. So this is a woman who came, and you can see, especially on this lower one, how high her mold count was, more than twice the normal range, quote unquote, experiencing all these symptoms on the right here, like bladder infections and all this stuff. Her practitioner said, "Oh, this mold you're seeing is only from foods." I don't know why. She had an inspector come to her home and say her house was mold free, even though it had flooded like twice. So I don't think anyone was out to get her. It's just that if you don't know this topic well enough, you're not inspecting well enough, you're not a practitioner with good mold skills. Unfortunately, people who are really sick are getting some bad advice. This is a client in her 70s, been put on this extreme protocol by a functional medicine practitioner, treating her for heavy metals. She's on all these herbs that were giving her diarrhea. Now she wasn't comfortable to leave the house. It's just too much. So you have to know who you're treating. You can't just treat a person like a textbook and say, I'm going to test you for heavy metals and parasites and this and that, and then I'm going to throw it all at you. People can't keep up with that, especially not at age 74. So this is a situation where things needed to go back to the basics quite a bit. This woman's daughter is the one who came to me, and she was going to this her mother's place, at least 3 times a day to give her all her supplements, and she couldn't take this one with near the binders and and it's like, it's too much. It's not elegant treatment planning. So that's something we can help you learn about. You've got to match the client's treatment to their situation. If they've got a bunch of little kids at home, they're not going to have time to do a coffee enema every day. You have to be realistic about what they can do and set them up for success. So this is what we teach in our toxic mold training program. And I can't see your comments while I'm looking at the slides, but I'll go back and take your questions in a minute. But we teach you about reading labs, making protocols, a lot about the home, um, how to do it properly, who to hire. And it's nice to have a little community. Basically, everyone who comes through has been affected by mold, so we all understand each other. Here's a few of our past students. They're so cute. Um, Health coaches we see a lot of, but we've had some like pharmacists. We've had some students. We've had some people do it for their personal knowledge. So this is the first time we're doing a hybrid model, which is making it more affordable for you. So we'll have 6 live sessions. 4 of them are just kind of a general Q&A on the last 2 lessons that you've hopefully watched. We'll have a getting to know you session in the beginning so we can network with each other. And then we'll have at the end a case studies session where you can bring your own case on and we'll talk about it live. I'll review the labs and everything together. And we have a bunch of bonuses. We have transcripts. So whatever way you like to listen and learn is possible for you. And we also now have a little directory on our website if you so choose, if you want your website listed. And we've got some nice bonuses from some of the mold companies over the time. So here's the lessons. I'll just show you kind of quickly. There's 8 lessons, like core lessons, and I prepared 4 of them, and Coach Mickey prepared 4 of them. And we start, from the beginning, like what is mold? How does it affect you? We talk about some things that I put a little spicy pepper on a few things that I thought would be interesting to you. Like we talk about mast cell, which is a great topic, an important topic. Questions about remediation. We talk about colonization. We talk about the nasal environment quite a bit. How to get bile moving, how to get bowels moving, how to deal with symptoms, specific symptoms your clients have developed, how to kind of get clients from that messy beginning stage to, they're moving on and now they're just sort of maintaining, which is exciting. And here's a little snapshot of some of the bonuses. And this is my last slide. So this is, what are we on? February 11th. So registration will close in about 2.5 weeks. So if you need to kind of mull it over, we give you a little time. But I'd very much like to have you. The class will start the following Monday, which is March 3rd. And again, if you can't come live to anything, it's fine because a lot is pre-recorded. You can email in questions. But if you can attend live, it's nice, right? Because we can talk to each other in real time, answer your questions, which I think is a lot of the value of a live course. So the price now is $497. It was $1,000, but now that we're keeping it less live and more recorded, I can give it at a better price. Hopefully get more people to be able to afford to come. If you've already been a student, just disregard this. We're going to send you a special email to come back as a returning student at a lower price. But this is the general price. You can use this QR code to go to this page here to read more of the details and see the schedule and that kind of thing. But it's a really special course. There's really nothing like it. And it's the only one I know of with a live element at all, which, mold creates questions. So it's nice to be able to come ask them and just build your confidence around this topic. So I'm going to stop sharing these slides if you have any questions. Hi, Janet. Yeah. So the water, so there is an ingredient in bleach that can kill mold, but the problem is it's in a medium of water. So it's adding water to the problem, which is not what we want. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? This is my first time in this YouTube live format, so it's a little harder to see what's going on. Um, but happy to answer any questions now. We have a frequently asked question page that uh, you can see a lot of the common questions that we can help you answer, that type of a thing. Um, but yeah, we've got a few weeks, 2.5 weeks to decide. But I'd really love to have you. I love to get to know you guys personally because um, I don't get I also love the interaction. I love to know who you guys really are and get to know you rather than just talking at you. So if you came late, this replay will be available, I think, at the same link. I didn't create like a proper registration and stuff. I did this a little bit off the cuff, but I will put the email out in our newsletter. I'll put the recording out in the newsletter and a link to the program. But yeah, I think it's a really great investment if you are taking the topic mold seriously in your career or in your community, and you just want to understand it better. You're thinking of, becoming more of an expert on it, and you just want this like confidence under your belt, and us there to support you. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know I kind of talked about a lot of different things, but I think especially I wanted to just show you, um, this is a topic that we're not skimming the surface. Like, we're going really deep, and it's a lot. It's like a lot of content. Not to scare you, but we have probably like 800 slides, so we're just packing, a lot of information on you that would take a lot of time to learn on your own. We've done a lot of research. When questions come up over time about, I don't know, like the best nasal spray or whatever, that's stuff that we're researching, so you don't have to look around for it. So great. Well, thank you to everyone who is on live. I really appreciate it. And reach out to our team if you have any questions. Hold on one second. I think I don't have the link under the YouTube, but I will add it because we just got it all cleaned up. But I will get the link going in a few more places. Here, I'll just put it in the chat real quick. And thanks again. Bye, everybody.